Hi, I'm Matt, and welcome to my latest tech news video. I'll be covering recent tech news in this video. These news videos will generally cover gaming related tech, but also tech and hardware in general. I'm grateful for any feedback, so if you feel the need to do so, please leave a comment below. You can also like and subscribe if you're enjoying my videos. Just before we get into the news, I did want to say that I will be covering some Gamescom stuff, tech stuff during this video, though probably not all of it. More coverage will likely be in the next tech news video, as the event is currently ongoing. I will also be adding images and maybe footage during some parts of the video if what I'm covering has related images or footage. But yeah, now let's get into the tech news. Some big AMD news in this week's video, most coming out of Gamescom. There's also some interesting Nvidia news as well, but we will start the video with the AMD Gamescom news first. I shall start with AMD's newly announced GPUs. I had covered leaks for both of these GPUs in multiple previous videos. The GPUs that AMD announced were the Radeon RX 7800 XT and the Radeon RX 7700 XT. AMD's Scott Herkelman, I believe it is, revealed these during AMD's Gamescom 2023 AMD Gaming Festival event. Starting with the RX 7800 XT, this GPU has the full Navi 32 GPU die at its core, featuring 60 compute units, 128 AI accelerators, 16GB of GDDR6 VRAM, clocked at 19.5 gigabits per second over a 256-bit memory bus. The card will consume around 263 watts, I believe, when stock. Next, the RX 7700 XT has the same Navi 32 GPU at its core, although with 54 compute units enabled and 108 AI accelerators. The 7700 XT has 12GB of GDDR6 VRAM with a 192-bit memory bus, and memory clock is clocked at 18 gigabits per second. Watt-wise, the card consumed around 245 watts when stock. Going by AMD's own claims, the 7800 XT will outperform the RTX 4070 by 3.5%, so they mostly trade blows, I feel. In ray tracing, the 4070 is most likely going to edge ahead. Going by AMD's claims again, the 7700 XT will be approximately 12% faster than the RTX 4060 Ti 16GB and thus the 8GB variant as well. Both of these new AMD cards are releasing on the 6th of September to coincide with the main launch day of Starfield, as AMD is the game's official partner. Pricing wise, the RX 7800 XT will start at $500 and the RX 7700 XT will start at $450. Not much of a gulf in pricing with that difference, priced fairly close together. I think the RX 7700 XT will perform quite well against the RTX 4060 Ti cards, but I would have liked to have seen the RX 7800 XT perform higher than it has been shown to. It looks like it will perform very similar to the 6800 XT and the RTX 3080, and as mentioned, the RTX 4070, which they compared it to. Although it is more efficient than the former two GPUs, watt-wise, power consumption-wise. I guess the RX 7900 GRE is kind of more of the performance successor to the 6800 XT, though that isn't widely available outside of China yet. I suppose this is still early. We will have to see sort of tech YouTubers and people get reviews out for the cards so we can see how it actually performs against the 6800 XT and the 4070 and 3080 and the likes. So maybe it actually will perform better by then. Yeah, not really sure. I just have to wait on that. So yeah, I'd say a decent showing by AMD in regard to its new GPUs, but I would have liked to have seen better performance from the stronger GPU. Pricing, I guess I'm okay with. I would have liked to have them to have gone lower, but they didn't. I would have maybe thought the 7700 XT could have been around the 400 mark, but it's 450. But I guess we'll just have to wait for reviews to see how it's sort of price to performance are with these cards. I am, yeah, definitely looking forward to how these new GPUs perform when tested by tech YouTubers. I'll most probably cover how reviews on or around the 6th of September go. There'll be, yeah, an interesting time to check those cards. Actually, on a related note, they showed off an Avatar Frontiers of Pandora limited edition RX 7900 XTX graphics card. It looks quite cool actually, but I don't think you can buy it directly. I think it might be only for it's just limited edition or limited to like contest winners, or maybe only select people are able to purchase them. I'll probably put a few shots of that up here. This is similar to how they also revealed a Starfield themed 7900 XTX and 7800 X 3D recently, I think a couple weeks ago. So yeah, that was fairly interesting news. The big news, sort of AMD wise, GPU wise, that we've been waiting on for a little while, I guess. And yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing the proper reviews of these GPUs. Hopefully, I would imagine on or around the 6th of September. The next bit of AMD Gamescom news was the reveal of FSR 3, sort of long awaited, I guess, FSR 3. The official announcement came after the GPU reveals. It will have a similar feature as Nvidia's DLSS 3 frame generation, with AMD's version called Fluid Motion Frames. Both are essentially AI added frames alongside the AI performance boost. FSR 3 will first be enabled in two games, Forspoken and Immortals of Avium. Two games that I would say haven't really been that well received. I don't think. Forspoken did too well, and I think it released earlier in the year. And Immortal of Avium is quite new, but so far I think it's got a mixed rating on Steam. So yeah, maybe there were some better games they could have added the tech into first, but those are the two they showed off today. Although AMD have said that it will be coming to a number of games in the future, including Cyberpunk 2077, Space Marine 2, which is interesting, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, and I believe Starfield, although they didn't actually show that um, during the showcase, but I would hopefully it would be in at some point. It looks like FSR 3 will be available in a month or so, going by what Frank Azor said. He also confirmed that FSR 3's fluid motion frame tech will work on RX 7000, 6000 and older Radeon GPUs, as well as Nvidia GPUs, similar to FSR 1 and 2, and also I believe Intel Arc GPUs. Although the fluid motion frames component will only work with RTX 20 series and Radeon 5000 series and newer RTX and RX GPUs. So RTX 20, 30, 40 series and Radeon 5, 6 and 7000 series, I believe. Frank Azor also said that FSR 3 will get implemented into older DX11 and 12 DX12 games at some point as well, so that's quite interesting. And going by what he said, if it is all like definite, then there could be like thousands of games, I guess, with FSR 3 implementation. We will have to see. That does sound quite impressive. This looks like it will be possible as FSR 3's fluid motion frames will be integrated into AMD's HYPR-RX, so HYPR-RX earlier next year, so 2024. As this is a driver level implementation, a game developer won't necessarily need to add it to their game. It is likely though that FSR 3 will work better when specifically developed for, I would think. But this will allow it to be enabled in most DX11 and 12 games, older games. Yeah, I'm interested to see how well that works in practice. Like to see sort of in-depth looks at that, because it's quite interesting. But I think games that have FSR 3 implemented, like newer games, it'll probably run a lot better than it's simply implemented in an older game. Bit on AMD's HYPR-RX, so it is a one-click driver solution that enables Radeon Anti-Lag Plus, Radeon Boost, and Radeon Super Resolution. And yeah, I believe it's it'll be part of the AMD driver package. In Unreal Engine 5 will also have an FSR 3 plugin similar to the DLSS 3 plugin. This will make it far easier to implement into Unreal Engine 5 games. At least this is what I'd expect, especially if they are specifically wanting to target it to add it into the game. So that's good to know. So that is the AMD Gamescom stuff covered. I've got a bit more on AMD next, a bit more AMD GPU news. I covered previously the Radeon RX 7900 GLE, which was basically a cut down 7900 XT with 16 gigs of VRAM. This GPU is a China-only DIY product, although it is available outside of China in pre-built PCs, I believe. I think Hardware Unboxed, they did a recent video on the card. They actually had to buy a PC in Australia that already had it. But yeah, that was quite an interesting watch. Now it looks like AMD might be readying another GRE card, so an RX 6750 GRE, to complete with the RTX 4060 and 4060 Ti. Going by the article, it will likely be priced similar to the 4060, but may perform more like the 4060 Ti. I guess, yes, this would sort of bridge the gap, I suppose, between the 7600 and the newly announced, the 7600 and the newly announced 7700 XT. Although I'm not sure why they don't just do it 7600 XT or 77 non-XT. I'm not really sure. I didn't realize this when I covered the 7900 GRE. The GRE actually does stand for Golden Rabbit Edition, which is quite interesting. The 6750 GRE was potentially leaked by Yeston, a company who are an AMD AIB partner, specifically covering the Asia Pacific region. I think they may also do some Nvidia GPUs, or they maybe have done in the past. A tech blogger apparently got the company to confirm the existence of this new GPU based on the previous gen RDNA 2 GPU architecture. Yeston is likely the only AMD AIB authorized to produce an RX 6750 GRE graphics card, going by what the tech blogger had said. The only other details are mostly speculation. The 6750 GRE is looking like it will be a higher clocked, maybe better binned GPU, or it could change up the GPU from the Navi for 22 at the core of the RX 6750 XT for the Navi 22 GPU. Sorry, for the Navi 21 GPU, which would increase the stream processor count. This new potential GPU will more than likely only be available in China as a DIY part. It may receive a release in other regions later on, or we might be able to buy it pre-built with like the 7900 GRE. If any tech YouTubers review this card when it releases, if it does, then I may cover it, though we might be waiting a little while for that. There was no release date or sort of speculated release date as far as I could tell when I had a look. And next up is the final bit of AMD news before we move into some Nvidia news. So Anand Tech has reviewed the ASUS ROG Strix Scar 17 2023 model, which features the mobile Ryzen 9 7945HX 3D CPU, the first mobile CPU which has AMD's 3D V-Cache. This mobile 3D V-Cache CPU has 16 cores, is Zen 4 Ryzen 7000 based, and has 128 megabyte of 3D V-Cache. The new CPU can boost up to 5.4 gigahertz and has a TDP range of 55 watts to 75 watts. And it does share the same configuration as the Ryzen 7000X 3D CPUs in regard to cache placement, with the 3D V-Cache on top of one of the chiplet dies. In Cinebench R23, the Ryzen 9 7945HX 3D equipped ASUS laptop scored 31,617 in the multi-threaded test. This score is behind the desktop Ryzen 9 7950X 3D score of 34,680.9 and a bit ahead of the desktop Ryzen 9 7900's non-X score of 25,737.7. Going by reviews, it looks like this new mobile CPU is in the top spot at 1080p gaming, but at 1440p and 4K resolutions, where you're generally more GPU limited, its performance is lower, as you might expect. It does look like this is potentially the new mobile gaming CPU king, but laptops with that feature it will likely cost quite a lot. Pricing wasn't revealed from what I could see, though, as the video cards article says, the ASUS ROG Strix Scar 17 will cost around $3,000 to $3,500 US dollars. I would imagine in the future AMD would offer an 8-core variant, which could also be used in laptops, as at the moment there is no evidence of that. but it would help lower the price of Ryzen 7000 mobile 3D V-Cast CPUs equipped laptops, which, yeah, is a good thing. And we'll, if any more details come up on anything related to that, I'll probably cover it in the future. So that is the AMD stuff covered in this video. Now onto a few bits of Nvidia news. First, I just want to say I was wrong last week, and Nvidia are in fact at Gamescom. At the time, I didn't see any information suggesting that they would be there. Yeah, I got the info wrong. I shall try and do better next time. So yes, at Gamescom, Nvidia has announced an update to DLSS in the form of DLSS 3.5. This is an upgraded version of DLSS 3. DLSS 3.5, which adds a new feature called ray reconstruction, which aims to increase the overall quality of ray tracing in general. It looks as if this update will be available on RTX 30 and 20 series GPUs, though the DLSS frame generation component will still be limited to RTX 40 series GPUs. Nvidia is saying that DLSS 3.5 will improve the denoising part of the software, and that ray reconstruction has been trained on 5 times as much data as DLSS. The article reads that, quote, "It has been trained to incorporate additional game and software engine data, recognize various ray traced effects, distinguish between good and bad temporal and spatial pixels, and preserve high frequency data for upscaling," end quote. DLSS 3.5 will be coming in autumn or fall, and Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty expansion will feature it upon release, from what I can tell. It will also be available in Portal, RTX, Alan Wake 2, and some other games will likely include at a later date. As well as games, it will be available in the Nvidia Omniverse, Chaos Advantage, and D5 Renderer, which the latter two I had not heard of before. I may try this out when I play Cyberpunk 2077, which I have the game but haven't played it yet. Might just wait and see what reviews are like for Phantom Liberty and pick that up before I try it, maybe. The next bit of Nvidia news is related to the company's gaming revenue growth. Nvidia has reported that gaming revenue grew by 22%, with the dedicated GPU laptop market fueling most of the growth. These results were revealed when Nvidia released its quarterly revenue trend. The 22% gaming revenue growth is when compared to last year, but it did experience growth of 11% compared to the previous financial quarter. Going by Nvidia's own stats, gaming revenue is at $2.486 billion. For comparison, last year it was at $2.042 billion, and the previous quarter it was at $2.240 billion. The total revenue for this financial quarter was $13.507 billion, which is up quite a bit from the last financial quarter, which was at $7.192 billion. This seems largely because of the data center market, which is heavily utilizing Nvidia's AI-targeted GPUs. Nvidia's CFO, Colette Kress, also shared that, quote, "Just 47% of our installed base have upgraded to RTX, and about 20% of the GPU with an RTX at 3060 or higher performance," end quote. I think that was meant to say have an RTX 3060 or higher performance. And that is that Nvidia bit done. Lastly, on the Nvidia news side is news related to RTX Remix. The classic PC game Half-Life 2 is getting the RTX Remix treatment. A number of modders across 4 Half-Life 2 mod teams are teaming up to start their own studio called Orbifold Studio. Their mission will be to update the classic PC game Half-Life 2, and they will accomplish this through the use of Nvidia's RTX Remix tool. And the project was officially revealed by Nvidia on its Nvidia GeForce YouTube channel. Half-Life 2 released back in 2004 and was an instant classic at the time, as a lot of you probably already know. From what I've seen, this does look like a rather substantial graphical update. The RTX Remix tool wielded by these modders has really done wonders for the look of the game. This remix version of Half-Life 2 will include ray tracing as well as DLSS support. Going by the footage and screenshots, the lighting looks pretty great and a massive improvement as you'd expect over the original game. Textures, assets and models will all see increases in fidelity as well. It's looking rather nice. There is no release date as of yet for the full remix game, but I'd expect it to come out towards the end of this year or early next year, maybe. There's a chance we may see a demo in the meantime, and might give it a go if it does end up coming out before the full remixed game. And that is it, the Nvidia news finished, I believe. Now for some Nintendo Switch news. The handheld console now supports Denuvo DRM and has the ability to apparently stop PC emulation of the device, apparently. That does sound somewhat concerning given how much I enjoy emulation. I've never emulated the Switch, but I could see myself doing it in the future if I was able to get a copy of the latest Zelda game. And if I do end up getting a Switch, I don't know. There are rumblings still of the Switch 2, or the coming out, I think, middle of next year. So maybe if I was to get one, I'm not really sure, to be honest. But it is, I think, from like information that has been leaked, it will apparently be backwards compatible with older Switch games. So that's at least good to know. So yeah, if I had the games like Zelda and I had the Switch, and maybe play it there for a bit, but I would probably end up wanting to emulate it on PC, as I have heard Switch emulation on PC is actually quite good. Going by what I read, the tools to enable Denuvo in games will be available to Nintendo Switch developers, so these developers will have the choice to enable it or not, or maybe some publishers will require them to use it. Denuvo will be considered Nintendo authorized middleware on the Nintendo Developer Portal, the NDP. Irdeto, the company that purchased Denuvo in 2018, say, like they also say in regards to PC, that Denuvo will have no performance impact in games where it is implemented. As covered previously, Irdeto will be providing trusted media outlets, in quotes, outlets with separate copies of the same game to showcase that Denuvo has no performance impact on a game when implemented. We would take Irdeto's claims with a pinch of salt, at least until we get some proof, and I would prefer if they released the game builds to independent YouTube reviewers. Back to the emulation side of things. I think if you own a game and its relevant console, you should be able to play it on PC through emulation. Nintendo's still got the sale of the game, I guess, unless you bought it secondhand. As far as I can tell, the Switch and its game sales are very good, and they've fared well for this long without Denuvo. I guess we'll just have to wait and see if Denuvo is implemented into any Switch games in the future. It does concern me a little bit, but there's only limited information on it at the moment, and whether it will actually be deployed in a lot of Switch games, I mean, we don't know yet. Next up, I will be covering some PC game PC specs. These PC requirements are for the upcoming Forza Motorsport game, which I believe is the 8th game in the Forza Motorsport line of racing games. The Motorsport titled Forza games are different to the Forza Horizon games, as they are track-based games like the Gran Turismo games, as opposed to the open-world Horizon games. Forza Motorsport is a franchise of games I am a fan of. I did play a bit of Forza Motorsport 7. That was the last one I played properly, but that wasn't as keen on it compared to the older games, especially Forza Motorsport 4. I felt that in 7 you were just sort of given a lot of stuff, given everything, maybe not everything, but a lot of stuff sort of on a plate, and didn't have to put much effort into acquire like higher tier vehicles and things. I prefer racing games where you need to put sort of an effort in to be rewarded, like Forza Motorsport 4 and especially Gran Turismo. Actually, I don't know if I'm in the minority, but I quite like the licenses and things on Gran Turismo 4. It just felt like I was sort of earning something that, or completing something to then progress in the game. There was like a stop, like a block before I continue, which I sort of enjoyed overcoming with the licenses in that game. I know some people prefer the faster progression, but I'm hoping that Forza Motorsport is more like number 4 or Gran Turismo and sort of less like number 7. I thought number 7 was good, but I just preferred the older games. I feel like the faster progression though does fit the Horizon games better, and for them I think it's fine. I've only briefly played Forza Horizon 4, but I would like to get into the Horizon games in the future. They do seem more chilled out. I briefly played 4 and it seemed pretty cool. Anyway, back to the next motorsport game and its PC requirements. We'll put an image up of the spec sheet so you can go over it if you like. Just some quick bits before I get into the specs in more detail. The game is shipping with support for Nvidia's DLSS 2 and AMD's FSR 2.2, so that's all good to me. They may add FSR 3, and DLSS 2, but that's not certain at the moment. It will also require a 130 gig SSD. It might run on a mechanical hard drive, although performance could be significantly impacted. SSD wise, it does recommend an NVMe SSD as your install location at the ultra settings at least. Now for the PC hardware specs for the game. Minimum specs, low settings. For the CPU, it lists an i5-8400 or Ryzen 5 1600. On the GPU side, it lists a GTX 1060 6GB variant GPU or an RX 5500 XT 4GB. 8GB of RAM or system memory is also required. Onto the recommended specs or high settings as it lists. For the CPU, it lists an i5 11600K with a Ryzen 5 5600X. GPU wise, it lists an RTX 2080 Ti or a 6800 XT. Bit of a performance difference between those two. System memory lists 16GB of RAM. Now for the ideal specs, ultra settings. CPU wise, it lists an i7 11700K or an Ryzen 7 5800X. On the GPU side, it lists an RTX 4080 or an RX 7900 XT. RAM, it still lists 16GB of system memory. And at this tier, it does list an NVMe SSD, as I had mentioned earlier. There were no resolution details given, but I suspect low settings is 1080p, high settings is 1440p, and the ultra settings is 4K. Interesting to me is that they list a faster AMD GPU for the recommended specs, then list a faster Nvidia GPU for the ideal specs. Not sure why. I won't ponder it too deeply. Just sort of stuck out a bit to me. Could be something to do with ray tracing if the game is implementing it. Just a note on that, I did quickly just check. It does say the game will feature ray tracing global illumination. These requirements aren't too surprising, although the ultra settings requiring an RTX 4080 or 7900 XT is a bit higher than I thought it would be. As I've said before, PCs are so interchangeable in regard to all the different hardware configurations, so I would imagine the game will run fine on many different PCs. Just a quick note, the game will also support 18 different racing wheels on console and 41 different racing wheels on PC. Hopefully, Forza Motorsport is an entry in the franchise that I will enjoy, but we'll have to wait and see. I'll probably play it on or around release, and the game is actually releasing not too long, on the October the 10th this year. Final news piece for today is some ASUS monitor news. At Gamescom, ASUS has announced and revealed what it says is the world's first 32-inch 4K OLED monitor. It is also available in 34-inch and 49-inch ultra-wide and super ultra-wide variations, respectively. The monitor, the 32-inch one, is called the OLED or OLED PG32 UCDM and has a refresh rate of 240 Hz, a response time of 0.03 milliseconds G to G, so gray to gray, and the panel technology it uses is QD OLED. This enables the monitor to reach a peak brightness of 1000 nits. One interesting thing is that the monitor has a custom graphene, I believe, heatsink, which reduces or negates the risk of burn-in, which can happen with OLED monitors. Connectivity-wise, it will have DisplayPort 1.4 and HDMI 2.1 ports, as well as a USB Type-C, which I believe is for power delivery. Release is likely early next year. This monitor does sound pretty cool and feature-rich, though it will likely be rather expensive. I wouldn't be surprised if it came with a price tag in the range of $1,200 to $1,500 for the 32-inch model, though I could be wrong. ASUS also revealed a curved 34-inch OLED ultra-wide 3440 by 1440 monitor, which has a 240 Hz panel as well and the same response time. It is the ROG Swift OLED PG34 WCDM and can reach 1300 nits of brightness. And finally, monitor-wise, they showed off a 49-inch super ultra-wide QD OLED 5120 by 1440p display. This monitor is also curved with a refresh rate of 144 Hz and the same response time as the two other monitors of 0.03 milliseconds, brightness is 1000 nits. ASUS also displayed a number of Z790 motherboards which should support 12th, 13th and the upcoming 14th gen Intel CPUs. Finally, they did actually reveal a Wi-Fi 7 gaming router, the ROG Rapture GT-BE98 Pro, and ASUS has said that this is the world's first quad-band gaming router, and that it will enable speeds that are 160% faster than Wi-Fi 6. So that is all the coverage in today's video. May cover some more Gamescom tech announcements in next week's video. That depends on how much more is revealed by then. But I think tech-wise, that is the more interesting sort of side of Gamescom. Yeah, so some pretty interesting stuff revealed. Before I sort of wrap up the video, I will do a YouTube spotlight section. So this is a hardware unboxed video, actually. It's the AMD Ryzen 5 7500F versus the Core i5 13400F. So Steve from Hardware Unboxed reviews the Ryzen 5 7500F, and to sort of test whether it's the new Budget King CPU of at least the newer generation of CPUs. So yeah, if you're into sort of more budget, new budget CPUs, that might be a good video to watch. I'll link it in the description as always. That's all the tech coverage from me today. If you're interested, you can also check out my gaming news, which was published yesterday, or should have been published yesterday. As always, feedback is appreciated, so go ahead and like or dislike and leave a comment. If you enjoy my videos and commentary, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back again soon.